Good evening, parents. My name is Ian Grell, and this is my offering for Parent Night. I've been training all week and preparing this classroom. If I've learned two things this week, it's that it's going to be a really big joy to interact with your children again. I've just adored the feedback that I've gotten through the videos that I've sent. A lot of students have been expressing that they're enjoying them and they're a little excited to come back. That's a bright spot in my world. I'm also aware that it's going to be really tiring to come back. The word is atrophy, and I even knew in March when we were starting this long-term distance that September would be a tough month for all people involved, and it's one thing to predict it and then another thing to feel it. And to be just at a full-time teaching schedule for your children, a full-time learning schedule, whether it's sitting or standing, it's going to be very, very tiring. So I think we already knew that, but just wanted to bear witness. As we persevere together, we're going to have to be gentle and hopefully find some extra pockets for early bedtimes this week. Some teachers have given you a Loom video. I offer you a room video, and come on into the classroom. I wanted to be up front. I have 25 students per class, and I've kind of strategized this Socratic formation. I'm trying to give you a little visual here. So basically it's a horseshoe of desks. As you can see, some of those desks are close together. I can separate the desks maybe 6 inches. The good news is that students will be facing me and facing away from each other. With the mask on, I think we're safe. And yet, just so you know, they will have a table partner and they will be somewhat close to them. I wanted to just share a little bit about myself. I am a child of the 90s, and I have had to adapt to the growing virtual world. And when I was a little shaver, watching cartoons, I had to pick myself up off the couch and push one of the buttons to get the channel that I wanted. But then I found out that I was a part of a millennial generation, and millennials, while watching TV, have 2 screens active. They've got the TV and likely their phones. Things going on. That's a lot of attention disruption. But your children are part of that interesting Gen Z. How many screens do they have active? The average middle school student has 4 screens active while watching a movie or watching TV or doing much of anything. The TV, the phone, maybe a Chromebook, I don't know, maybe an iPad, maybe a Kindle, who knows? That is a lot of attention disruption. Well, I've got a screen within a screen here. I'm a little worried that everything's going to be reflected in reverse, but I have the power of reading things out loud. And I'm just here to affirm your place in this classroom and to give you a quick overview of what our academic pursuits will look like too. So this slide says, welcome, you are an important part of this class. This statement means all the more to me because I am not a parent, and I respect you so deeply for what you had to experience over a stay-at-home order. I can't begin to say that I know all of your stories, all of the ups and downs of that. I'm sure there were moments of closeness and maybe even preference that life slowed down and you homesteaded together. But of course, there were moments that you were at your wit's end. I can imagine that you were feeling relieved that your children have a place to go and have friends or just people to be around. And at the same time, there's the tension of relief and concern, and how do we operate with wisdom and prudence? I hope you really just lean into your your choice as parents to do whatever you think is best for your children. Currently, in my homeroom, we've got 3 remote learners. That'll be just fine. If that number increases, that'll make sense. I'll adapt to that, and you will too. And I am hoping that we can provide a kind of a very, a clean, conscious environment in my classroom. I've got the protocols ready. Thank you, finally, for adding kind of teacher to your parent resume. I'd love to hear some of your stories, maybe what you learned about how your child learns. Always open for parent feedback. And I'm very glad that I can take students under my wing in person again. I feel really confident about this year. This is my 8th year teaching. I usually find that students can grow up to 2 grade levels as a reader. And that kind of skyrockets them for high school. Of course, not all students do this. I think it takes grit. It takes a certain amount of trust for me, with me, in order for me to lead students. And yet, I know I can help build this culture of focus and wonder and inquiry for students. I've attached 4 things to the email that I sent this video on. There's 2 syllabi on there. You don't have to, please look at them, but you don't have to do anything. It does say at the end, like, sign your name. No need to return that. I've shared all my cards with you in the 8th grade scope and sequence attachment. So that means that I know everything that I will teach from the start of the year to the end of the year. I've got a few substitute books if I feel like we need to go in a different direction, a little more challenging, a little bit more accommodating. But all that to say, we will be writing often, we'll be reading every day in class, and then we'll be going through quite a timeline of history too. The final attachment, if you'd like to try the millennial screen life out, watch this video, and then go on a computer, click on that SS overview, and that will take you to something that says user-friendly version. Basically, that's another sequence that asks all the essential questions of my units. And it also talks about the standards that I hope to accomplish. So if you are interested in what your child will learn, there are 3 main standards on social studies, and then 4 in language arts. That seems little, doesn't it? I have a conviction that less is more. As I said, there seems to be a good connection if I teach fewer standards, as long as I give a well-rounded experience and education to your child, they still grow extremely much. This is a method from an educator named Mike Schmoker, where I teach about 8 to 10 standards a semester. And then instead of me teaching 113 standards, promising that your child will master 113 skills and then delivering on maybe 2 of them. We're going to be reading a lot of different things this year. We've got my favorite, Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. Kind of gives us a question, are we living well? Are we living right? Why do we feel so empty? John Steinbeck's The Pearl, a lesson in greed and how the American dream isn't always for all people who live here. Female writer Agatha Christie, murder mystery, How to Write with Suspense. We will be reading the play about Anne Frank, very common. And then The Outsiders is a great way to finish the year as well. One book that I might do this year, I haven't done it in years, but Lord of the Flies. It's often a high school text, and yet really interesting to think about the need for order, the need for rules, what happens kind of when we're unsupervised, and how do we live well as a community. I think I'll finish on just one slide. This is one of my favorite Greek philosophers. His name is Socrates. It says, "The quality of our lives is determined by the quality of the questions we ask." And so that to me means that I want to give permission to your children to ask me questions, whether it's about my life experience, about sensitive things in literature. Children are curious, and we often don't give ourselves, or we often don't give each other permission to ask. But I believe that eighth graders are on the cusp of a lot of intellectual maturity, and I give them a lot of credence. I give them a lot of voice and choice. So instead of just asking who threw away the hatchet in chapter 5, just kind of a gotcha question, we ask such questions as, what does it mean to be human? Or is a crime ever the right thing to commit? Is it okay to disobey? Is rebellion good or bad? To some of these debatable questions, which will translate into persuasive writing. Final thing, I invite you, just like I've invited your children, to email me just a couple sentences if you'd like. What are your hopes and dreams for your child? I've got hopes and dreams for your children as well, and I don't even know all of them yet. My hopes are that they would simply be able to make wise choices, but also to think for themselves. I believe that we're often raised to believe one thing, and we aren't often really shown empathy, shown the differences in people's experiences. So I really don't feel as a teacher that I'm in a place to just pass on what I believe to students, but I know that I've experienced a lot of life through reading and just through my life events that I've gone through. And I would like to present a lot of situations, a lot of topics to students, and help them make wise choices and be able to think for themselves. Please email me. This is just a short little snippet. I'm more than happy to communicate with you throughout the year, and can't wait to be adaptable, and can't wait to learn with you and learn with your children. Thank you.